There we go. Now we're live. Hey, what's going on, everybody?
Hey!
Technical difficulties. I have technical difficulties at least once a week. Every week that I do this, I have something that goes wrong. This time it just didn't go live whenever I hit go live. That's all that happened. So that sucks.
Well, that's a problem.
So, as I was saying before to nobody, obviously, with me I have to that side, not Reno Bomb. He is a YouTuber. He is somebody who streams video games, plays a whole bunch of different stuff. He is perfect for today's episode where we're going to be talking about the new console generation and the console war. Below me to the other direction that way, the amazing CJ. I should take this off so you see the names. The amazing CJ, who is another video gamer. He loves long walks on the beach and playing Rocket League in his spare time.
Including the long walks on the beach part. I hardly walk.
And right below me, we got the one, the only Mr. Mike from Misery Point Radio. Yeah, what's going on, Mike? He used to work at GameStop, so he's perfect for this as well. So, what the heck?
I was in the cult. It's true.
Yeah, it's kind of disappointing whenever you work for a company, and I'm not going to name any names, but you work for a company that you think is going to be awesome, and it turns out to not be awesome.
It's kind of like being a guest on a podcast sometimes.
Ooh, wow. Sorry I screwed up the opening. All right. Sorry.
I want to say, though, before we get rolling, that I love listening to your intro music because now I'm ready for battle. I feel like I could take on hordes of evil minions and save the world. So I'm pumped. I'm excited.
Full disclosure, I am going to be changing it at some point if I can find somebody to do it. Man. And I have like the perfect idea. It's going to be kind of like a Prince-esque song. I'm pumped about it because it fits perfectly. So, sorry,
okay.
Kind of weird. Yeah, it's completely different than that, but whatever.
Shitting in my Cheerios, but whatever.
Listen, okay, I don't want to like interject myself, but I'm just saying if you want a theme music, I can play a Mean Mary Had a Little Lamb on a keyboard. I'm just saying that much right now.
Royalty free.
All right. Well, moving on. Just make sure everybody, before we dive in, to check out Spoilerverse.com. That's where we're going to find all things when it comes to Bridging to Geekdoms. Misery Point Radio, you'll find attached to that. Spoiler Country and a lot of other things. A lot of what I'm going to talk about today, you will be able to find on Spoilerverse.com as well, in articles or other podcasts and such. So make sure you check that out. So, first thing I want to start off on, because I just checked out a movie this past week, and I was just completely blown away by how amazing the film actually was. Came out back in 2019. I believe it was February 2019, and that's Alita Battle Angel. It's kind of one of those movies that I really wanted to see when I first saw the trailers for it. I knew it was a manga prior, or manga, however you want to say it, and I wanted to check it out. Never got around to it. Life happened. Didn't get a chance to see it. So finally, this past weekend, I was kind of just sitting on the couch and bored out of my mind, and was like, hey, let's see what's on HBO Max. And boom, Alita Battle Angel was on there. And holy crap, it was fantastic. It really just blew my mind away. Any of you guys check it out whenever it came out or since it came out?
Yeah, actually, I did. It's funny you mentioned that movie. So I remember being in a theater for a different movie and seeing that trailer and going, oh, that looks pretty badass. And then some time went by, and they're getting ready to release it, and people had released a bunch of previews, and everybody was kind of shitting on it, saying like, hey, this is all production and no substance. And then I was like, well, what the heck? I want to check it out anyway. And I thought it was pretty awesome. I thought it was a great looking movie. I really like the style that they went with. It's pretty stylized. And I had no idea that it had previously existed in another format. I wasn't familiar with it at all. So I think I kind of went into it with no preconceived notions about what it was supposed to be. So I think I didn't really have the same angle on it that some of the hardcore fans had, about, what worked and what didn't work, which honestly, I mean, Robert, you and I talked about that with Star Wars pretty extensively, so I think for me going into a new, what to me, I thought was a new IP with fresh eyes, turns out it wasn't a new IP, but I thought it was cool. It was fun. It was gritty. It was dark, kind of a noir look to it. Very, very stylized though. And I thought it was really well done.
Yeah, I mean, myself, I agree. I think, you get away from the CGI. I mean, let's face it, the world was covered in special effects and CGI, and I'm one of those sticklers for special effects. If it sticks out to me, then the story better be damn good to take me, away from noticing that. And I feel the story of Alita was just absolutely fantastic. To me, it's a 2-hour long movie that it felt like it was nonstop. It was always going, but it was never too much. It didn't feel, to me at least, like I talked to Colton the other day, and he's like, "Oh, I just felt like a drug. Like there was not like it was just slow." I was like, "What are you talking about? That movie was just fast paced, constantly going, but it was never too much. It was always exactly what you needed, gave you the information you needed to know, and it kept pushing the story forward." And to me, that took my eyes away from the poor CGI elements in some cases. Some of it was amazing. Some of it was a little subpar, but yeah, I loved it. How about Reno or CJ? Did you guys check it out when it was out or when it first came out?
I didn't see anything. All I saw was the trailer. I thought that the animation style for what they did with her character was cool, but other than that, I didn't really see much about it.
The closest thing I've seen to is One Punch Man. I've never watched anime before or manga or anything like that. So I want to get into it. I just don't even know where to start. And I figured One Punch Man was half decent, and I enjoyed it. So
well, jump onto the Dragon Ball Z train. All right, like that was my doorway into it. Quiet down, like that was my doorway into anime. And I'm not going to sit there and say it's the greatest anime ever, but it definitely has its place in the history of anime and what it did for the entire genre, as at least on the American side of things. I mean, I know it's big over in Japan and everything, but I mean, honestly, you can't say if it wasn't for Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z in America in the late 90s, early 2000s, there wouldn't be as big of a following in the States as there is now. Definitely not.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But all right. Well, I guess nobody else wants to talk about Alita, so I'll jump to the next thing. Batman Day was this past Saturday, and I kind of want to go around real quick here because Batman is near and dear to my heart. It's the first superhero I remember ever hearing about, learning about, seeing, because when I was a young lad, I mean, my father passed away when I was 4, but I remember sitting on my dad's lap eating Sandy's cookies, watching reruns of the 66 Batman series. I mean, that's how close Batman is to me. It gives me some memories of me and my father. So I love Batman. Batman Day was this past Saturday. I kind of want to get an idea of if you enjoy Batman, or if you don't, why don't you like Batman? Or, maybe what's your favorite Batman memory, favorite Batman movie, something like that. So I'm going to start with CJ. You go, buddy.
Well, as far as I've never been really big on the DC comics, or really the entire DC side of everything, but Batman, I'd have to say, is probably one of my favorite DC heroes, because it's not corny. It's not like, oh, Superman, you can only kill him with one thing. It's like a dude who has a fear of bats. He turns it into his persona or whatever, and he's not, I don't know the word to describe it, but basically he's just not as corny as the other ones. It's something that I like that it has more realism to it, as much as you can in that kind of thing.
All right, well, fair enough. Reno, how about you? I know you're not a huge comic book guy, but
I still enjoy Batman though. As a kid, I still have action figures of him on the other side of the monitors over there. Probably about 20 years old, this tall. But played all the video games. I loved it. I grew up watching them and stuff. But my favorite thing about Batman was he was more mental than anything. He really didn't use guns, explosives. He did, but it was more physical and mental puzzles that he would solve and deal with, rather than relying on being able to fly or be invisible and stuff like that. He used more machines and brains, and that's why it attracted me to him, instead of like Superman, used as an example for him, or the Flash. They have gimmicks. What's Batman's gimmick? It's not that big. He just used brains, money, and engineering and stuff like that. So I enjoy him just for weird, different reasons, not as normal. The engineering wise, I enjoy him. So yeah.
And Mike?
Huge Batman fan. You probably can't see. Well, actually, no. On one of my adjacent walls, I've got 2 big monster posters that I snagged. I mean, that they fell into my truck after the Batman launch for each of Arkham Asylum and Arkham City. Somehow they ended up at my house. I don't know. But yeah, and then I mean, I kind of agree with the fact that, you know, what I like about him is that, yeah, he's a superhero, but he's not really using superpowers like you were saying, right? He's using his brain. He's an intellectual, I should say. And yeah, he uses these badass gadgets and whatnot. And it's kind of like he outsmarts his enemies, I think, which is really cool. Plus, I think, honestly, like the backstory with Batman, or at least, you know, one of the million backstories, but I always kind of liked his backstory, his origin story. And, you know, kind of, yeah, I think his story is very dark. And so I liked everything about Batman. I liked just this feeling of, you know, like even the setting with like Gotham being this just rundown cesspool of madness, and within that context, there's still this, there's good, there's evil, and then there's the gray areas, and they always operate in those gray areas, which is what I really always liked. Plus, I thought all the villains were cool. I thought they were really well personified, and going back to watching the original shows, I always liked how the characters played out. And I actually really like to see the different interpretations over the years, you know, for instance, like, you know, the Penguin and who's portrayed him, and, you know, all the Joker and all, you know, all the different villains that have come through, and watching the different interpretations from the TV shows to the movies with the various directors and stuff like that. And I know it started to get a little hairy there, you know, just like a lot of different universes with, you know, what has become canon and what's like extended universe kind of stuff. But yeah, I think in general, like I always go back to Batman, and I'm not a huge DC person myself, but always enjoyed pretty much every iteration of a recent Batman movie, even the ones that didn't fare well. You know, even like, you know, everybody kind of shit on Val Kilmer, and I was like, hey, I thought he did pretty good, you know, but I have my preferences, you know, but, you know, some are better than others. But in general, like I just enjoy the franchise, and I try not to over intellectualize it anymore like I used to do.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you on that. I mean, there's been so many different iterations. You can pick out your favorite. You can pick out your least favorite. You can take a look at the different directors and the different directions that everything went. And it's been an interesting ride for the better part of, 60 years, really, when it comes to mainstream Batman. I mean, he's been around since the 30s, really, 1930s. So almost 100 years. I mean, you know, it's been a long time that he's been around. But, you know, when it comes down to it, I think that, you know, the best way to put it is, you know, he's kind of in a weird, dark way. You know, he is each one of us trying to do better in the world. You know, he suffered some sort of, or he suffered a traumatic, you know, incident in his life. And, you know, it was just, how did he respond to that? And I think it was a brilliant, you know, the evolution of Batman was just brilliant because, you know, they didn't keep him the campy character that he became in the 60s. They really made him a dark and brooding character, but it works because of his backstory. I can't imagine, you know, I think, if I'm not mistaken, there's one mention in the 66 Batman where they're just like, his parents died and that was it. Like, they don't really dive into that they were murdered in front of him, you know? So like, you couldn't imagine that type of storyline would work. And while that show and Adam West and everything that was done with Batman back then holds, you know, very special place in my heart for just the memories I have. I mean, I gotta say, I mean, while I really enjoy Michael Keaton, who is a, you know, hometown hero of mine. I grew up in the same hometown as Michael Keaton. I have to go with Ben Affleck being my favorite Batman, just because I feel that he captured the comic book version that I always envisioned and always wanted to see on screen when I got older as an adult and started reading the comics and seeing all that different stuff. You know, the different versions and iterations in comics. I felt that, you know, I think the darkness of him didn't really start until the 80s. And I think because that stuck so much and because people enjoyed that so much, it was weird to see them go the route in the 90s with Val Kilmer and George Clooney, with all the bright lights and the neon and all that crap, because it wasn't what was happening. They kept it dark, but they were like, oh, but here's all these neon lights and everything. Chris Nolan brought it back to being a little more grounded and dark, but I think when Zack Snyder took over and threw Ben Affleck in the role, I think he really brought it back down to the roots of the darkness and like the 80s aesthetic of, not aesthetic, but the 80s feel that Batman was back then in the comics. And I really enjoyed that. But yeah, I mean, Batman Day happens once a year. I love it. I wanted to do more for this site, but again, life got in the way. Some things came up for me the past couple of weeks. I wasn't able to get things planned out like I wanted to. I think, Mike, I don't know if you were in any of the conversations. We were talking about doing some things and it just didn't pan out, unfortunately. So sometimes it happens.
Well, I guess I'll get on with my life now. It's funny you mentioned Batfleck though, because I'm just gonna come right out and say it. I am not a Ben Affleck fan in any stretch of the imagination. Don't like him. Don't think he's a great actor. However, I really liked him in Batman versus Superman. Surprisingly, I liked him not just a little bit. I thought he was fantastic. I was like, did you just redeem yourself, Batfleck? Because I'm kind of known for not being a huge fan of his, but I've kind of come around, and there's some things I like of his. And also, I've never been a big fan of the this versus that kind of ideology in movies. Alien versus Predator, Godzilla versus Mothra. Whatever you want to call it. I just always kind of took those elements as like, oh, those are cool, to read about, but I don't know if I've really ever enjoyed a movie experience like that. And so I did enjoy Batman versus Superman, and I was pleasantly surprised, and I ate my words quite a bit after shitting all over him, saying he's going to be the lamest Batman ever, and then I was like, oh, all right.
Well, what we're going to do here quickly, hopefully it works. I've had some issues with the audio here. I want to watch the Mandalorian Season 2 trailer. I know, Mike, you're a big Star Wars fan. I don't even know if you got to see. Did you see Season 1 yet?
You had to put me on the spot, didn't you? No, because I haven't ponied up and thrown in for Disney Plus yet because of philosophical things. But I have to because everybody's cramming it down my throat, and I know it's friggin' awesome. And I've already had it spoiled for me a million times, so I already know it's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to watch the trailer here real quick. Hopefully, if the audio doesn't work, I'll just stop it. So, but I'm going to play it right now.
You could just narrate it Snoop Dogg style.
Snoop Dogg style. Oh, wait, it's not working. You know why? Because I'm an idiot and did this. There we go. Let's try this again. Snoop Dogg style. I can't even try to do that. There we go.
Show me the one whose safety deemed such destruction. You must reunite it with its own kind.
Where?
This you must determine. The songs of eons past tell of battles between Mandalore the Great and an order of sorcerers called Jedi.
You expect me to search the galaxy and deliver this creature to a race of enemy sorcerers?
This is the way.
You know this is no play for a child. Wherever I go, he goes. So I've heard. This is the way.
Did you guys able to hear that? Did it work? I hope.
Yeah, sick.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely love it. I can't wait for to season 2 of The Mandalorian. I mean, it's gonna be epic. There's been a lot of rumors and talk about the different characters that may show up. Ahsoka Tano, Boba Fett supposedly going to show up in some form or fashion. We know that Tima Morrison, who played Jango Fett in the prequel trilogy, is cast in this upcoming season. So we know that we're going to see some sort of clone action, whether he's going to be Boba Fett, or a clone aspect of the show. We know that Timothy Oliphant has been cast in this season. He's supposedly going to be the one playing Boba Fett or wearing the Boba Fett armor. So there's a lot of different things that are kind of cool that I'm really, really looking forward to with this next season. And I talked about it last week. There's some rumors going around of some behind the scenes shit that has been going on with Lucasfilm since Disney took over. It's kind of disappointing. I'm hoping it's not true, but it seems like there may be a possibility that that Disney or Lucasfilm heads are kind of meddling with what Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are trying to make and put together for The Mandalorian, which is kind of disappointing. So hopefully that's not the case, because we saw what happened when they meddled with the sequel trilogy and didn't turn out great. And I don't want to see that keep happening. I mean, if that's the case, every single project, with the exception of Episode 8, will have had some sort of controversy behind its production. And if you ask me, that's not a good sign for what's going on at Lucasfilm. But yeah, so hopefully, I don't know. CJ, I know you saw season 1. What are your thoughts on this?
I didn't get to see the entirety of season 1 because I only because I had a free trial of Disney Plus at the time. I watched the first episode, or maybe the first 2 episodes. I can't remember.
You do completely realize you live literally 5 minutes from me.
Okay, what does that have to do with anything? I don't want to bother anybody. I'm just like, at the time that I was watching it, my free trial had ended, and by the time I got it, I just completely forgot about everything. But I do want to catch up to it for the simple reason of I did hear something that I probably shouldn't have been able to hear, but I heard that an actress from WWE, because I watch wrestling a lot. That's like one of my biggest things. And she is going to be over. Sasha Banks is going to be in it. I don't know what she's doing. I don't know what any of it is.
Trailer. There's that scene of the woman in the hood. That's Sasha Banks.
Is it? I was trying to look for Baby Yoda. I'm not gonna lie.
Reno, you a Star Wars fan at all? We've actually never talked about this, I don't think.
I mean, just like Batman, I'm into the engineering aspect of it. I'm not super into the lore and stuff. I'm super into how the weapons work, how the vehicles work, how the possibility of lasers coming out, guns being shot. Like, anything I watch, that's what I'm into, is like just the engineering aspect of it. So I kind of tune out of the plot and I just stare at the machines.
Yeah.
So you like technology then?
Oh, 110%. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm making a shock wire for my friends. That's what this little Arduino board is so far.
Sweet.
Like the thing at Kennywood, whenever you like run the wire, you have to like trace the wire. If not, it just goes off. This one's going to shock you instead. But I'm not going to tell anyone about it.
We're going to wait a minute. You just told everybody.
So all 4 of you watching out there, you got the inside scoop.
Right now, it's just one.
Try
it. Look, we've been mainly a podcast. I get all my listens on the podcast. I'm still building the YouTube. All right, people, geez, come on. But one more trailer I want to talk about and show. I mean, it's been more than a year. Yeah, it's been more than a year now since we've gotten any new MCU property released. It's hard to believe that it's been more than a year since we've gotten any new Marvel Cinematic Universe anything out there. COVID kind of screwed everything up. Black Widow was supposed to be out in May, I believe. That's been pushed back now to December or January or something. I don't know. It keeps getting pushed. Everything keeps getting pushed. So now the first thing that looks to be dropping this year will be WandaVision. So we're going to watch that WandaVision trailer here because I thought it was trippy as balls and looks like a fun ride. So let's see.
Heavenly shades of night are calling. It's twilight time.
Wanda and Vision, Oh, we have 5, Pat.
This is our home now. I want us to fit in.
Oh, this is gonna be a gas!
Where did you two move from? How long have you been married? And why don't you have children yet?
Our story.
I think what my wife means to say is that we moved from...
Moved from where? Married when? Damn it, why?
Oh, Arthur, stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it.
Is this really happening?
Days of old, lighting the spark of love that fills me.
I did.
No. Why would you think that?
Because you are.
I pray for evening just to be.
We are an unusual couple, you know.
Oh, I don't think that was ever in question.
So, yeah, that is the WandaVision trailer. Again, another crazy, weird take on stuff. I don't know how big of fans you guys are with the MCU and everything, but that's pretty crazy. As the article I wrote whenever the trailer came out for Spoilerverse, I said it's like a trippy trip down like TV history because you can tell that it looks like they're going to be going through history of different television shows with Wanda and Vision kind of playing the main characters. It's really bizarre looking, and the trailer doesn't give away much, so who the hell knows what's really happening.
Definitely looks intriguing. I've never seen it before, but I'm definitely into it just from the aesthetic of it, purely of that. So far, from like knowing nothing, watching that, I'm definitely intrigued in it. It definitely looks something different. So,
have you at least watched the Marvel Universe films to know who Wanda and Vision are? No. Yeah, okay.
yeah.
I brought you on for the video game aspect. All right. So I got you. Yeah. And Mike just looks like, yep, that's a thing.
I can't say that I will throw my money at that, but I don't know. It looks interesting. I kind of get this cool like Fallout vibe from it in the sense of like the old aesthetics and things like that, and the music and stuff. So I kind of like that era. I really have an affinity towards that. So I don't know. Maybe I give it a chance when it launches, and maybe I'll look into it some more.
I mean, for me, I like that they're taking a chance with the Marvel Cinematic Universe in a way. They're getting away from the same old cookie cutter, same old,
Yeah, for sure.
What we've seen so far with all the Marvel films. I mean, it's essentially the same thing over and over and over and over again. And it's nice that they're getting away from that. This is something different. It looks like they're taking a chance, kind of saying, you know what, let's build something different. And they have the opportunity now with Disney Plus that they can spend, my guess is each episode is probably going to be 30 to 40 minutes long. So, what are we going to get? Maybe 3-4 hours worth of actual story, whereas opposed to a movie, you only get about an hour and a half to 2 hours. So it's kind of nice that they're going to be able to really dive more into the story of these characters and set up the world a little bit more. For those of you who have watched the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you know that we're in a post-Endgame world within that universe, and there's a lot of questions that everybody has since Endgame came out back in 2019. No, yeah, was it 2019 it came out? Yeah, 2019. I mean, Spider-Man Far From Home didn't really answer any questions. Since then, we haven't had anything. So it'll be interesting to see how they build everything from there, for sure. So, yeah. So, okay. I guess unless CJ wants to say anything, he's muted himself there. So,
yeah, I had myself muted just because my chair squeaked. But as far as that went, my ADD kicked in during that opening and closing scene because of the because they muted the colors, and whenever they did it, I just realized that all of Vision's colors on him are the exact same whenever they mute the colors. And then my brain just registered that and only focused on that, and then I just missed almost everything. But everything in those moments, whenever it was colored, I was fine. But I didn't miss the fact that there was the one actress that was on that 70s show that played
Kitty.
Kitty from
Yeah,
that 70s show.
Mom.
Yeah, I thought that's kind of cool to have her on there, but I wonder. I was shocked. I mean, Catherine Hahn's in it. You have her, I can't remember her actual name. Kitty from that 70s show. There's a couple of things, actors and actresses that popped up. I was like, wow, they got them in there. So it's going to be an interesting watch. I think I'm looking forward to it for sure. But yeah, moving on. So before we get into the whole PlayStation versus Xbox stuff, I want to kind of touch on this because I know CJ is dying to talk about this and he's really excited about it. And that is the news that Microsoft acquired Bethesda. They announced this just yesterday on September 21st. This is monumental for Microsoft and Xbox. It truly is. And I don't think people understand that to the full extent. I know that since the announcement, a lot of things have come out. Like Bethesda was like, look, all of our games are not going to be exclusive to Xbox. They've said that. Like, look, they're not going to be exclusive. This is just kind of a partnership between Bethesda and Microsoft for them to get more resources to do bigger and better things. Absolutely. However, damn well that they're going to have some exclusive rights for Xbox, whether it's timed exclusives, certain titles might be exclusives, something like that. Something like that's going to happen. But because CJ was so excited, I want you to take the ball here and just explain to us what you're excited about with this news.
So first off, I do want to continue what you were saying about the exclusives. What I think they're going to do is, I think as far as like their multiplayer games, if they do release any more multiplayer games, which we know Bethesda isn't, they're kind of hit or miss with multiplayer games. But whenever they manage it, or even actually in a regular game, you can add DLC content that is exclusive to that platform. And as much as I hate to say it, like Fortnite does, because like Epic Games isn't a bad company, although I don't enjoy the game. But what they do is that they'll give like certain cosmetics to certain platforms. Like PlayStation has their own skin for PS Plus, like 4 or 5 different skins for it. And I think that they're going to do something along the line for that, but like with like a DLC or something, maybe with Elder Scrolls 6, they could literally do it with anything. They just try. Like, it's not going to be something huge, but it's going to be something that they can do to please Microsoft.
Like Nuka World, but only on Xbox instead of for everyone. Nuka World for Fallout 4.
But
yeah,
a big thing that I do want to state about this is that it's not a coincidence when they announced it. Like, obviously, allegedly, it's not. I don't know for sure, but it seems kind of odd that they would announce, "Hey, we bought this multi-million-dollar company that made one of the top games ever." Just the day before our pre-orders, now pre-order our console. And they didn't really Bethesda said that none of their games are going to be exclusives, but then the people were just like, well, what if Elder Scrolls 6 is an exclusive and Elder Scrolls 6 is going to be on Xbox Game Pass? So
I mean,
what are we going to do here?
Right there. I mean, you mentioned Game Pass, and that is kind of the biggest thing going for Microsoft right now is their Game Pass subscription service where you pay $15 a month, essentially. You get Xbox Live and a huge array of games from the Microsoft Studio and their partners, as well as recently announced EA Play, which is EA's basically Game Pass in itself, where all EA titles are on it. So now with Microsoft Game Pass, you will get EA Play, you'll get all the Microsoft Studio games, all the Bethesda games, all of that stuff. And that's huge. I mean, that is a huge driving force for what Microsoft is trying to accomplish in my eyes. And this is just the start because while I said their games are not going to become exclusive to Xbox, but you damn well know that the games are going to play better, look better, sound better, everything on the Xbox as opposed to the PlayStation at this point. I don't know. Reno, what do you think on this whole thing?
I mean, I think it's definitely an amazing acquisition to get Bethesda, but with how we brought up the streaming service, I ultimately think that's gonna just pretty much end the console wars. How everyone says Xbox versus PlayStation, because if you have enough streaming services, look at cable, that's starting to go extinct. That was the main service. Consoles are the main service. If you have streaming services, PC, Xbox, PlayStation, they're all going to start to be the same. So it's going to like start to just all become not Xbox or PlayStation. It's going to become one console. So like until that day happens, I'm still going to be a PlayStation person, but having Bethesda be acquired by Microsoft is huge for Xbox, because if they could say right now no exclusives, but tomorrow they could say everything's going to be exclusive, because now that they have control. Yeah. So it could be, what if they launch both consoles? It's going great. Xbox falls behind. They say, pull the plug, no more PlayStation stuff. We're just going to start pumping out Xbox material, all DLC to that, start sending it there. And that could be a huge problem too. So you just have to wait and see if Microsoft stays true to their word. And if they can actually fix maybe the Fallout series somewhat after the disastrous launch of 76.
Kazing.
So
it
Mike.
worked one time. So,
power armor. Fucking love it.
One time it worked.
Yeah.
So,
what do you think of the acquisition?
Well, okay, so I'm not a fan of it, like from a consumer standpoint. I guess I've never really been a fan of large companies buying other large companies. But I mean, I get the reasons why. And in all honesty, Microsoft, because they are known to kind of fall behind in the sense of exclusivity, right? So they don't really make, say, the software sales and have the third-party support that Sony has enjoyed. Sony being an international company that enjoys worldwide success, and Microsoft really has struggled outside of the US in terms of sales, in terms of PR, in terms of, you know, just not having kind of the backing overall that Sony has had. So to get a company like Bethesda under its wing, if for no other reason, provides them another revenue stream just to kind of keep the business going. I mean, everybody knows consoles lose money. They don't make money on consoles. You don't make money on hardware. And a lot of times you don't really make money on software. So it's kind of like having another avenue to kind of, I don't know, get a little bit more in your pocket. I think from a consumer standpoint, yeah, I would be concerned about them pulling something kind of out of the back pocket, as I don't want to say I'm being sneaky, but, you know, the potential for, you know, as you were saying, just for things to be going a certain way and then something starts to slip, you can start to see them pulling the reins on things. I can see that being a thing. What does that mean for, you know, the huge AAA Bethesda titles, your Fallouts, your Skyrims, and things like that? Those, I can't imagine that, for instance, Bethesda as a company would say, hey, we're going to support this going on to one console only. I don't see them politically being able to survive something like that without a massive backlash, but I can definitely see timed things or in-game exclusives or nickel and diming you on some kind of DLC or giving you some spiffs, things like that. But I do think that you can definitely look forward to branding partnerships, advertising partnerships, and things that kind of generate, you know, other sources of either revenue or just publicity from massive campaigns and things like that. Will it sell the hardware itself? You brought up a good thing about the timing on the announcement being, oh, hey, look, we're putting these up for pre-order, and all of a sudden, here's this thing, right? I definitely think that leads me to believe that there is something with that somewhere. I mean, I would have a hard time believing that they're going to announce this massive partnership and really nothing happens because of it. There's got to be some reason. You could even see maybe exclusive console bundles, you know, like a Skyrim branded Xbox, for instance. They've done that several times with consoles. You know, like, you know, Sony's, you know, the PS4 Pro Spider-Man edition or the Epic Star Wars editions, of which I've owned all of them. You know, so if they come up with something like that, you know, or a bundle or a package or a holiday deal or something like that would kind of make sense. You know, you're getting into like Black Friday, Christmas shopping season. So maybe they say, hey, cool, we're going to pack this game in if you buy it with the Xbox. You get it with the PlayStation, you still get the game, but you got to pay for the game. Maybe we throw in a free game for you, you know, Bethesda title or something, or give you like a DLC code for some free Bethesda swag or something like that. So, while I'm not a fan of it, my old school me wants to throw a fit over it, but my new school me is saying, hold your breath, Mike, and let's just kind of see how this plays out.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're on to something. You're right. There's not going to be, when it comes to their big titles. Let's say this: you got your Elder Scrolls, you got your Fallout, even Doom, Wolfenstein. Those things I don't think are going to be exclusive to the Xbox. But I think there may be a time when Bethesda is, commissioned to make a specific games just for the Xbox line of systems. I know that they've talked about, like I said, that they're not going to be exclusive to Xbox. They do currently have a deal also for 2 games to be exclusive. I think they're timed exclusives: Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo for the PlayStation 5, which that will be honored from what I understand, what I've read, for the foreseeable future. I don't think they're going to change that anytime soon. However, Xbox boss Phil Spencer did state that other games will hit non-Xbox platforms on a case-by-case basis. So I think that kind of falls in line with kind of what you were saying there, that it's not going to necessarily be where their games are going to be exclusive specifically just to Xbox, but you're going to have the timed exclusives. You're going to have the different perks with the exclusivity, with different console brandings, and the nickel and diming of maybe add-ons. Like PlayStation had Destiny, and the Destiny series. They have the timed exclusives on a lot of the what are they called now? Expansions and battle packs, or whatever the heck they're called on that. They get them first. I think we're going to see that when it comes to Fallout and to Elder Scrolls and everything in some form or fashion. And I think it's only fair because Sony has been doing this now pretty much the entirety of the PlayStation 4 lifespan, and Microsoft hasn't gotten on that train yet. I don't know if they just haven't been able to do it or they just haven't wanted to do it, but now is a perfect time. And you get a brand like Bethesda with the properties that they have, which everybody loves Fallout, everybody loves Elder Scrolls. People are going to want to play them. They're going to want to get the best versions. They're going to want to get the expansions before everybody else. And if they do that, it's brilliant for Xbox and Microsoft, especially with what I see is going to be this next generation of gaming, which we're going to get into in a second here. But before we move on, anybody want to touch on anything else in that regard to what happened?
Yeah, I do want to add one more quick thing to that, and this is just a little bit of going back when they launched the Xbox One generation, right? The last generation of consoles. Microsoft had actually gone on the record and said that they were going to be getting out of the console business. And they said that once the Xbox generation is done, that's it. They're done. And really, if you look at what they've done in other avenues of their businesses, which has gotten more into things like productivity and into publishing. So the acquisition of Bethesda really could tie into their bigger scheme, where they just want to break more into publishing and distribution and things like that as a way to kind of start to transition out of the manufacturing of hardware. When that time comes, as you were saying, as the need for hardware becomes less relevant, and it's the streaming services and the things that people do with them becomes more important, hardware becomes less important. I think that this is an avenue for them to basically start phasing themselves out. And I wouldn't be surprised to see more big partnerships. We already know they work with EA. We already know that they work with plenty of other companies as well. So that's my prediction, is that's them starting to look at their future in games when they are no longer part of the hardware.
I can see that, definitely. I mean, I don't know if their vision of removing themselves from the hardware aspect of Xbox is going to come to fruition. I think that they're noticing that there is a lot of potential there. I think the market is good for having multiple systems. The PlayStation, the Xbox, and the Nintendo. Each one brings something slightly different to the table, and it's hard to imagine that there would be a world where it's just PlayStation and Nintendo, or just Nintendo or just PlayStation.
Sure.
Because I think that while we are seeing a huge shift in what's capable of consoles, I think, and we're going to get into this here, Microsoft is setting themselves up to do something rather very small if it pans out and works the way that it should. But before we get into the next generation of consoles, we have to talk about this, because in order to get to the next generation and start the next generation,
what was that sigh? Oh no, he's saying, oh fuck. All right.
And I want to start with you, because you being the PlayStation guy here, last week they started the pre-orders for the PlayStation 5. By any chance, did you get the ability to pre-order one, Reno? Did you?
Well, Amazon, Best Buy, and a few other places jumped the gun, and they did it too early,
as always.
And a bunch of people bought it, and then they just got all the consoles. So regular people like us had zero chance. Amazon, I think they did it 20 minutes early, because I know some places were supposed to wait till the end of the announcement, but there's like, no, we're going to do it now. So half the people didn't even know they got released. And then once people found out they got released, people that were sitting there waiting already bought 15, 20 consoles, and they're going to be on eBay and by the end of the night. So it was just a whole, people didn't even know they got released whenever they are sold out.
Yeah,
it was a great time.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. Sony, you can't really blame Sony for it, because the retailers are the ones that jumped the gun.
For sure.
There wasn't enough direction from Sony on how to handle that on that day. It's unfortunate, and that's kind of the biggest problem that we have with all console launches, is the fact that these consoles are highly sought after when they're released. I mean, that they're the biggest thing of that year for the holiday season, and I've never liked the idea of the pre-order when it comes to consoles. I think they should end that aspect of it and just say, look, it comes out on the 10th, go stand in line. I'd love to doing that when I was younger, going and standing in line at a Walmart, at a Toys R Us, at a GameStop, or something like that, standing in line, because you get to interact with customer, or with the other customers, the other players, the other fans, and there's something about it that just is just so exciting. And personally, I think that's what they should have done for these consoles. But then again, with COVID going on, they probably didn't want to chance it. So,
or another aspect, do it like shoes, like a raffle. You buy your ticket ahead of time, and then you just wait to see if you win.
Yeah,
that even solves the problem. Pre-sell, say 10, 15,000 tickets. You're going to release 5,000 consoles. Those 15,000 are going to tune in and watch. If they win the 5,000, they know then and there. There's no, if you have bad internet, or you're going to have Wi-Fi instead of LAN, or your computer's bad.
Yeah,
that aspect is gone. You can't bought it. You just buy a lottery ticket, wait.
I mean, today was the pre-order launch for the Xbox Series X and the Series S. I jumped online, tried to get one pre-ordered. Couldn't happen. At 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time is when it went live. I was sitting there. I was refreshing all the different sites that I could refresh. Amazon didn't pop up. I still haven't seen it pop up on Amazon yet, so I have no idea if Amazon even has any. GameStop put you in this queue to wait. By the time you got through the line, they were all gone. Walmart was sold out in like a minute or two. It was just ridiculous. I mean, there's no chance. Plus, you have all these people now who utilize bots on their computers and on their servers and everything like that, that there's just no way, really. And there are some people who got through. Congratulations. Good for you. Hope you enjoy it. But it's a little disappointing, because I don't want to go and walk around to drive around to all the different stores looking for this system. And if I wasn't going to get it today, it's just kind of like, you know what, I'm just going to wait until maybe after Christmas. If I see it on a shelf, I'll grab it up. You know,
it happens.
Exactly. To me, there's nothing for either system. There's nothing that is making it a necessity for me to buy it immediately and have it on day one.
Not to mention that the launch titles that have been announced for the consoles so far, there's no, I mean, with the exception of maybe Halo, right? I mean, there's nothing that's
Halo got pushed to March.
Yeah, right, exactly. You know, it's not even a thing. So you're looking at your launch window stuff, and you're just like, oh, well, there's some games, you know, but nothing there is. I mean, that's not driving the sales. So yeah, I'll tell you what, I'm glad that right now I'm not working at a store and having to answer the phone 4,000 times a day with people screaming at me about why they can't get their hands on a goddamn console. I have nightmares about that. So the process for pre-ordering consoles has always been a disaster, and a lot of it has to do with the manufacturers and how they divvy up market share. And so the idea of pre-orders, don't get it wrong. It's not a service for the customer. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with company politics and who gets market share and who can generate a guaranteed amount of customer base within X amount of time frame, so that the manufacturers can see who their biggest supporters are. It's a bunch of weird backdoor stuff. It's just ridiculous. But yeah, getting a console on launch day, always a fiasco. Always has been.
Yeah, definitely. The previous generation, I didn't wait in line. I didn't get it at launch day. I waited until probably about 5 months later, and I picked it up. The Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3 time frame, I was actually working in retail at the time, and even where I was working, I couldn't pre-order it. I couldn't do anything, and I ended up having to go. I had the flu, and I had to stand in line at a Walmart for 6.5 hours. Ended up being the second to last person to get an Xbox 360 when it was for what they had there. And the crappy thing about it, I remember, was there was about 10 people behind me. And the people that worked at Walmart kept counting. Like maybe once an hour, they would go through the line and count, and they would get to me. And at one point it was, okay, you're not going to get an Xbox. I was like, damn it. I was like, should I stay? And they're like, you can if you want. And an hour later they come, okay, you're the last in line. You're getting an Xbox. I'm like, fuck yeah. They count. And my buddy behind me, all right, you're good. You're going to get one now. And he's like, yeah. And they would keep doing that. And they did it one time, and they went and told the person behind, like my buddy, and like, yeah, you're going to get one, or two people behind him or something. And we got up to they finally released it. We got to the line, and my buddy ended up getting the last one. And the person was like, you told me I would get one. And they're like, sorry, we miscounted. And it was like, that's what it was. It was absolutely horrendous and ridiculous. And I still to this day feel bad for that person. But it was still a fun time. Granted, I had the flu. It was a blast sitting there talking to everybody. And I just wanted to get
infecting everybody.
Yeah, exactly. No, I sat there. I had a little bottle of Dayquil. I was just going like this.
Right.
It's a good time. But yeah, I mean, honestly, it was complete debacle for the pre-orders right now. It's not surprising, and they really need to come up with a better way of doing that. But are we really going to have to worry about that again anytime soon? I mean, this generation, the 9th generation, in my opinion, is going to be the longest generation for consoles, especially if Microsoft handles it the way I think they're going to handle it, because I think this is going to be a true 10-year generation of gaming. I think we will not see an official new console for 10 years to set off a new generation, in my opinion. But let's get to it. PlayStation 5 versus Xbox Series XS. Yes.
Can I say something real quick?
You raised your hand, sir.
I just went on Amazon. I did raise my hand. I'm still in school. No. There's Xbox Series X. I just went on Amazon. It was on there. It's listed, but it's out of stock already. So
yeah,
shocking.
but
I just saw that. I looked it up whenever you said that you've been checking on and off.
Yeah. Oh well.
Just to see if they had posted it recently.
Yeah. Whatever. I'm over it at this point. I'll just wait.
I'll list my 15 that I have on there by the end of the day.
Let's stop hiding Mike there. All right. So we got the PlayStation 5. There's two versions of that. You have the disc version, the optical disc version, and the digital version. And then you have the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S. And I kind of want to dive into this stuff with you here because, I wrote an article, what's going to be the best fit for you and your wallet? And I think I did a pretty good job of kind of hitting the main points, but not getting too technical with it, because a lot of people don't care about the technicals. They want to know, they know it's a new gen. They know that it's going to look good. They just want to know what's going to be the cheapest for them and what's going to look good. That's it. That's all they really care about. People that are crazy about these systems, about all the technical aspect of it, they know what they want already. That article was not for them. That article is for the people who have a kid who's like, I want a new Xbox for Christmas. And the mother or the father's like, well, there's two of them. Which one do we get? So that was kind of what the article was for. But let's talk about it here real quick. We know that they're both going to release or all 3 of them are going to release, 4 of them, whatever, are going to release within 2 days of each other in November. November 10th is the Xbox Series X and S, and November 12th will be the PlayStation 5 and the PlayStation 5 Digital. The Xbox Series X is $499, the Series S is $299, the PlayStation 5 is $499, and the PS5 Digital is $399. And I kind of want to stick to that point right now and talk about that. And I know, Mike, because of your experience of being in the retail business with these older systems that have come out, what do you think the significance is of these UPCs, these different UPCs? Do you think it's going to be, is it going to play a big hand in this generation, at least at the starting line?
So I don't know why Microsoft didn't learn their lesson last time around. The digital version of the Xbox One S was a huge fucking disaster from the gate. It didn't sell. Nobody wanted it. What you end up with is a consolation prize. If you can't find one, I guess I'll buy this one. Now, that being said, the digital integration is pretty solid at this point, so there probably are people that will adopt it. But there's something that people are like, well, I guess I could save money by not having this option. But everybody always goes back to wanting that option. But that price point is going to be hard to beat. $299's pretty epic. From a retailer standpoint, I always hated having multiple versions of the consoles, trying to keep track of them, plus trying to explain things to people, especially you're launching in the holidays. You got to have people out there that understand the differences, that can talk to those differences with the casual gamers or the gift givers or, whatever, try to explain, the features and benefits of each, I guess. But I guess a $299 option versus a $399 option is probably pretty smart on Microsoft's part to undercut Sony in that sense. Because if we're going to be 100% honest, Sony kind of has always done a little bit better job of getting the product out the gate. And just kind of doing better at launches with sales and things like that. And Microsoft is known to release multiple versions of all their consoles, like multiple. And Sony's kind of had really more of a streamlined approach of just here's a few versions, but not so many. So I'm actually surprised to see Sony release a second SKU for a digital version. That shocked me. I wouldn't have never expected that in a million years. I expected it from Microsoft. I didn't expect it from Sony. So
I'm gonna put Reno in timeout. There we go.
What?
So I heard someone going down the road, so I tried to mute my mic and I missed.
No,
it.
you're fine.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that it's definitely going to be competitive. I have found, though, that in terms of choosing a console based off of a price point, it's rarely the factor that people think it's going to be. People, as you were saying, have kind of already made up their minds about, as far as the core gamers go, they don't really care about the cost. I mean, it's a factor, but it's not like it's more about what games are going to be on it, and maybe for the super spec nerds about potentially what capabilities a console is going to have. But the price point really only tends to be a factor for gift givers in terms of choosing one over the other. A lot of people will end up adopting both at some point.
Who wants to go next? Go. You don't need to raise your hand. You can just talk, man.
No, I couldn't speak because I had mute. But so right now, just looking at these stats, there's something that comes to my eye really quickly. Is that I understand that we're speaking of PlayStation 5 versus Xbox Series X, but I was contemplating getting a Series S because I buy most of my games digitally anyway. But whenever you look at it, the Series X feels like an Xbox One to a point, or the newer versions of the Xbox One, like the series, or the Xbox X or Xbox One X or whatever it is. But it doesn't feel like, if you look at it, it's much better as far as the Xbox One X or Xbox Series X goes. And I think that paying $299 and getting a lot less, because you have to think going forward into games, they're going to get a lot more.
Absolutely.
They're a lot more demanding of your device and its CPU and everything. And as it goes, you're going to need a better console than just what the Series X is listing. And I didn't really look that much at the PS5 yeah, even PS5 is the PS5 digital is better than the Series S. I think the Series S's idea was to get it to be smaller and not like as much in the way as the Series X will be, because the Series X is going to be bigger, bulkier, and tall. But overall, if you look at the statistics, it is so much better. Like, I would see myself getting a Series X before any of the other ones just because of the specs of it. Like, I think that would be the most important thing, because you want something that'll last. You don't want something that you can get a little bit out of, and then you're going to have to buy another console just because it can't run newer games.
Yeah.
So I think that the best bet would be the Series X if you're going for specs and something that would last you as far as through the evolution of gaming, because it's going to change a lot.
Yeah, and you're talking as a core gamer too. I mean, obviously for somebody like you, that's you're right. The S is not going to cut it. It's kind of the lack of a better way to say it, kind of a dumbed down version. Even just talking about the not having an optical drive, you look at the spec differences. And also, what's up with Microsoft and the way that they name their consoles is so retarded. You know, PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5. It's fucking easy, right? And then you look at PlayStation 5, PlayStation 5 digital, but then you're going to have people go Xbox Series X, Xbox Series S. What's an X? What's an S? What's the difference? And you have a whole different level of spec. And you look at the PlayStation and you go, well, yeah, this is the difference. This is digital. I mean, that's it. That's the answer, right? For the most part, there might be some small stuff in there. But,
As far as go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say you're right though. It's like the S for most people, the spec alone is probably just not enough to cut it unless it is your consolation prize, and that's all you can get.
As far as Xbox goes, though, as far as like naming it, around the time that like Xbox started, really, it was mainly just something that would like draw people in. People would name things, they come up with catchy slogans and stuff. They still do it, but at that time, it was like at its peak, and like all of the commercials would be like overly extravagant just to try and draw in an audience. And I think naming stuff like that is taking something from their roots in console gaming. Whenever they're speaking, it's just like, hey, Series X, it's just like 5 Series X or
Xbox it's definitely One. Fancier. It's definitely
it feels
fancier.
A lot more. Cool. It's driving. It's like, yeah, I want that. Definitely.
Reno, what are your thoughts, man?
It kind of stinks for me because I always roll with place. I've always had both up until this console generation. This is the first time I don't have an Xbox. I have a PS4 instead. When I only have a PS4, but I always go for the physical. I don't like having digital. So in that aspect, I'm always going to be paying more. But in another aspect of, say I'm way younger, my grandparents want to get me a console for Christmas. They have no idea what they're looking at. They see the cheaper price tag. I get the Xbox Series S, and then in the future, I'm kind of screwed on games because at launch, it's acceptable. But who's to say in a couple years? I mean, look at the difference in the games now for the same generation.
Yep, absolutely.
So who's to say in the future the S or even the digital with its little difference in the little bomb saying it can't hit 4K? Who's to say that can't screw someone by a relative or a friend or a girlfriend or boyfriend buying that for them and not knowing the difference?
Yeah.
Here's the thing, and I missed on that article to put. Now, it doesn't. The Xbox Series S does not have native 4K, but it does have the ability to upscale to 4K. So it's not the same as native 4K. But let's be honest here. Honestly, when it comes to the grand scheme of things, for people who are going to be buying these systems for their 12-year-old kids and their teenagers, all that kind of stuff, they most likely do not have a TV that can handle true 4K, native 4K. The human eye can barely handle true 4K. I mean, let's be honest here. And the fact that the Xbox Series S does not do that, to me, and now I know that I've dropped from being a core gamer. I'm now down to a casual gamer. What happens in life when you have 500 kids and everything like that. But me, like, that is not a negative on the Series S. I don't see that as the ability to go to 4K or even 8K as being anything that is a selling point to me. I have a television downstairs that can do 4K. Okay, but Does that mean I truly care to see things in 4K? No. And I've said this before on the podcast. To me, video gaming has never been about look how beautiful it looks. Yes, that's an aspect of it, but I want a new inventive game that's going to keep me entertained. And while I don't want to see games that look like they did back in the 90s, I don't care if it's going to be 8K at this point, because honestly, there's not going to be much of a difference between what I'm seeing at 1440 and 8K on my television downstairs. There's just there wouldn't be. The frames per second, that's a little bit different. Yeah, I mean 120 frames per second, but that seems to be the norm now. Every single console is going to be able to go up to 120 frames per second. But again, is it really going to be as noticeable as you think? To a certain point, yes. When it comes to rendering and everything like that, absolutely. But again, every system's doing it, so that's not a selling point. So when you sit there and take a look, and that's why I brought up the price points at first, you got to look at the price points. And, Mike, you're sitting there saying when you were in retail, it sucks saying, okay, well, you have the X, which does this, the S that does this, the digital that does this, the 5 that does, you sit there and tell people all these things. But when you get down to it, is it going to do what you want it to do for the next generation of gaming? And all of these systems are going to do that. What Microsoft did, and I'm sorry, Reno, if I cut you off, but what Microsoft did was a really smart move. They said, okay, here's the deal. We want to start the next generation of video gaming. We want to do that. Our new system is going to be a $600 system or a $500 system. You add that on top of getting accessories for it because they have these new memory cards that you have to get for it. You, on top of buying video games and everything like that, you're not getting out of there at $500. You're easily going to be spending $700-800 to get a brand new system this holiday season.
As always, nothing new.
Yeah, again, as always, nothing new. But they did something smart because they're like, okay, the hardcore gamers are going to go for the X. That branding, that Series X, that started with the Xbox One X. That branding is specifically for those core gamers, those people who are going to be playing games. They know what they're getting. They have the top tier televisions. They upgrade their televisions every generation of consoles. That's what that system is for. The Xbox Series S is for those people who are like, you know what? I love playing video games. I want to jump into this generation because I see a lot of the features and things that they're doing are really cool. They're moving digital. Eventually, everything's going to be digital. They're going to get away from physical copies relatively quickly. The only reason you need a Blu-ray player on your console at this point is to be a Blu-ray player. That's about it. I mean, it's getting away from having physical copies, and it's a lot easier to go digital. So that S is your gateway into this next generation for $300, and then maybe $500 total. $600 total when all is said and done with games and accessories and such. Much cheaper than if you go the X route. And it's a brilliant move because Xbox is not stopping here with their series branding. Between now and the next generation, they're going to have a Series A, a Series V, a Series B, a Series R. And they're all going to do something different. And that's what is amazing by what they're doing, because they've essentially started a thing now, or not a thing, but they started this where you can essentially upgrade your system. That is what they're doing. Something that people have been wanting from consoles for so long, because they're like, PC gamers like, look, I buy a PC. If I want to upgrade, I get a new video card, get a new, this, I get more RAM, I do this. That's why PC gamers are like, PC Master Race, look what we can do. Well, Microsoft was like, how do we compete with that? So they were like, okay, we're going to make an entry-level console that isn't as powerful as the real console, but throughout this generation, we're going to say, hey, you want to be able to upgrade? You can upgrade. You can buy the next one. The next one will come out. Guess what? It's probably $300 or $400. It's going to be better than yes.
But you're not talking about upgrading though, Robert. You're talking about buying a different piece of hardware. You would convince me of that if you would say, hey, listen, if you bought an Xbox S, here's a component you can buy that will make the specs beef up, more than just buying a bigger hard drive. So you're not really talking about upgrading. You're talking about, okay, you got into the entry level point, but at some point now, you've probably reached the capacity. And if you want to do more, now you have to buy a different piece of machinery.
I don't think it's ever going to be. I think the Series S, I think you will be able to play any game that comes out in this generation.
Oh, for sure.
Now until the end. Whether the capabilities are going to be as great as the X or any of the other ones that come out, but it's not going to be a necessity. They're not going to say you have to upgrade.
Right.
But they do have that option though with the Xbox All Access. That is what is so amazing about that program, because you sign up for their All Access, you essentially get a line of credit. Unfortunately, you do it's based off credit, but you get a line of credit of $800 and you get an Xbox One S or One X, whatever it is. You pay on it for 24 months. So for 24 months, you're paying on this console. Within 18 months, at the 18-month mark, say you get the S and you're like, you know what? I want to upgrade to the X. You can do it. At 18 months, you can upgrade and get the X at that point.
It's like a phone contract.
Yeah.
Essentially, yes. It is a phone contract, essentially. And I think it's a smart move on Microsoft's part, because it is a way to compete against the PC market. It really is. You also have to look at what else Microsoft has done in regards to PC, and that is every Microsoft game or every game that is playable on both PC and Xbox, all you need to do is buy once. You buy that game one time, you can play it on your PC and your Xbox, and in some cases, your information will transfer back and forth. That's amazing. I mean, Microsoft is trying to find a way to fight the PC market as well as fight PlayStation. And I think this is the best way to do it. I think that the idea of having this entry level system to get people into the next generation, like, come on, you can ease your way into the next generation, and in 2 years, you can get the next one, or you can get the X or whatever is out there. I think that's a really good idea, because it's not pressuring you to buy a $500, $600 machine like the previous generations have. This is kind of like, I want to get into the next generation. Well, yeah, you can do it for $300 as opposed to $500. I just think that's a brilliant idea. And it's not to knock what PlayStation has done, because we knew it was going to happen. I mean, this is the official transition generation to all digital. After this generation, I do not see physical copies of games ever being a thing ever again.
I'm with you there.
But what about backwards compatibility? That's why you need a physical copy for the physical, like the consoles, so you can put the disc in instead of just digital. You get the ones you put the disc in, actually play the older games.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's a huge call out. And I know that, Microsoft, for instance, they had their digital version of backwards compatibility, which was basically emulators, not true backwards compatibility, at least at the launch of this last time around. But for those who are big into backwards compatibility, for some people that's a selling point, and some people it's a deal maker or a deal breaker.
Yeah, that's why I always go with the console. You get the physical copy for, just for that aspect. I've never gotten rid of a video game growing up. I've saved every single one.
Really?
And I'll replay every single one as much as I can.
Fuck that.
So,
I unload that stuff immediately.
Dude, I got boxes. I have a stack of like 40 or 50 64 games next to my light over there.
I love that though.
I hoard it. So that's why I always get the consoles to use the physical copies with, so I can relive those and stuff.
If you're hoarding those games, you better be hoarding the consoles as well, because it's going away, man. And Sony's already starting it this year. I mean, they've said not all of their stuff will be backwards compatible. I mean, PS4 will be. That's about it. Xbox is being a little more aggressive with it, saying, yeah, it's all backwards compatible, but it's all going to be digital. So you're either going to have to buy it or something like that at this point. They're going away from physical copies, because it's a cost for not just the manufacturing of the systems, to put in an optical drive, but in a way, it's a cost that goes into developing the games and publishing the games. And while we don't see a price break when it goes digital, it's definitely going to help the publishers in some way, I'm sure, in some form or fashion somehow. I'm not saying that it's a huge cost of money to create those discs and cases, but they're going to go all digital. And again, Microsoft is pushing that way with their All Access, with their Game Pass. PlayStation's doing away with the capabilities of backwards compatibility, and them releasing this digital version of their console at launch, which is something they haven't done in the past. They've released one console. This is the first time we're seeing a digital version of their console out at launch, and this is it for that. And backwards compatibility is important to some people, but I don't think that it's important enough to hold on to the past. You have to push forward.
Also worth noting that with discs specifically, a lot of times the reality is not all the information is on that disk. So you load that disk up and it's still got to connect to the net and it's still got to access cloud information. So you're not really playing those games off the disk directly. You've got your install batch files and maybe some things here and there on the disk, but the majority of what you've played is being downloaded or streamed to your console at some point.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask something. No, but
you didn't raise your hand.
Go ahead.
You may go.
All right. As far as the backwards compatibility goes, because you said something that I don't know if I misunderstood or I don't know if I was just wrong about. You said that it's all going to be digital as far as the Xbox goes for backwards compatibility, and I wanted to know if that was like how they were doing it, like if you weren't able to just slip a 360 disc in there, because right now I have Skate 3 on my, it's just a one that I thought of. I mean, like obviously I have other ones like Red Dead Redemption or whatever, but one day I'll get bored, want to play it. Now I don't have to for Skate 3 now because of EA Access, but I just pop it into my Xbox and then I can just play Skate 3. And are they going to do away with that, or what's going to happen?
I don't know. I honestly I can't say for a fact. I can't. That's something that I could probably look up. I mean, we have the internet at our fingers, don't we?
Can I bring up a really good question too?
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys think this will finally be the console generation where it'll be crossplay between all three platforms?
Definitely.
Xbox, PlayStation,
definitely.
PC, like finally between all games. I mean, not all games, but games that you can.
Yeah, I would wager to think that would be something. I mean, they've been talking about that now for a couple of generations, and Microsoft and Nintendo started working some stuff out this last year, which that was blowing people's minds, and Sony was the holdout. But I think you're right. I think that this could be. It won't happen this year, but I mean, by the time that this console cycle ends, I would say that there's probably going to be at least a few top games that allow for full integration of that. Absolutely. I see it.
And right here, Microsoft stated the Xbox Series X and Series S will support all games playable on Xbox One, excluding those that require the Kinect sensor, including those Xbox 360 and original Xbox console games currently supported through backward compatibility on the Xbox One. So there you go. I mean, that's what's going to happen there with that. The question that you brought up with cross-platform gaming, I want to point something out here. Sony has been very hesitant on jumping on that train or bandwagon there, and being receptive to that idea, part of it. Nintendo already has Xbox Live. You can get Xbox Live on your Nintendo Switch. That is a thing.
Yep.
Microsoft, as I've stated earlier, and I know I sound like a Microsoft fanboy. I'm really not.
By the way, you totally do.
Not trying to be here, but they have, by them taking on the PC side of things, you can get Xbox Live on your PC, Xbox Live on the Switch, Xbox Live on your Xbox. They're trying to corner a market here. Microsoft has been most successful with the most successful in regards to online play. Xbox Live is not comparable to PlayStation Network or the Nintendo online service. It's just, you can't, those two cannot compare to what Xbox has done with Xbox Live. They did a smart thing. Nintendo did a smart thing. Sure, bring Xbox Live over here. Why the hell not? Because what that's going to do, and this is just my opinion completely. I know that there's been rumors of different things that are coming out in the future with Xbox and Microsoft, but I really believe that Microsoft is going to try and get into the handheld game in some form or fashion. I think they're going to test out specifically with Nintendo because of their Switch. They want to see how well it's handled. Their games are handled on there, and there's been rumor for a number of months that we will eventually see Halo on Nintendo, and I think that's going to happen. I don't think it's going to be right at launch of Halo Infinite, but I would say during its lifespan, within the first year, 2 years, 3 years of that game, we're going to see it ported over to Switch. I do believe we're going to see that, and it's going to be the big test for Microsoft to see if handheld will be a viable option for their games and for the future of Xbox and moving forward. Because I think, and I've said this many, many times, the future of gaming is portability. When it comes to console gaming, portability is the future. To be able to sit down at your television and play is great, and people love doing that. But the ability to then pick up and play while you're on an airplane, on a bus, sitting on a break on your lunch, that is a huge, huge, huge selling point. And Nintendo got on it quick, got on it first, and we see how successful it has been.
Imagine if they released the PSP in like next year or this year. The PSP was amazing for its time, but it just never caught on.
It hasn't caught on because PlayStation didn't utilize it properly.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. Sony did not utilize it properly. And I'm not saying they can't. I think they still could. I think they could jump on that avenue again. And I'm not saying they're not going to. But I think Microsoft, because they're not putting all of their eggs in one basket right now. They're testing out so many different avenues to stay relevant no matter what. I was talking to somebody earlier today, and I said, what happened in this past generation with the Xbox One and the PS4, why Xbox failed, especially early on, was not because their system wasn't good enough. Because the Xbox One is a phenomenal machine. The reason that they failed is because they thought, because they won Xbox 360 that generation, they won because of their online ability. Xbox Live won them that generation. They thought that they can continue pushing the media side with the Xbox Live in this generation, and they didn't realize that gamers wanted games. That's what they want. Gamers want games, and that's why Sony succeeded so much. Well, right now, Microsoft is doing both now. By acquiring Bethesda, by pushing their all access and their Game Pass, by tackling the PC market, by working with cross-platform gaming with Nintendo. They're tackling all these aspects because they found a way that we're going to stay relevant in some form or fashion. People are going to buy our products. It's not our system. You could sit there and say our system sold the least this generation, but we could tell you this right now. Our name was on everything. And that is what they're going for right now. They don't care about winning this generation by selling the most Xbox Series X or S or V or Q or P or whatever they're going to have come out. Their success is going to be judged on their name being on everything. And that's why I think Sony is so afraid to jump on this bandwagon of cross-platform gaming, because they know as soon as they do that, Microsoft is going to be right there like, hey, your network sucks. Hey, Xbox Live. Hey, Xbox Live. And I think that's what's scary.
They don't have, PlayStation won't have to step up anymore. They can't really act like as pretentious as they are now, saying, oh, we're still a step above you. If they actually do join Xbox, they're forced to see who is actually better.
Yeah,
and
putting their money where their mouth is, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
they have
who's better. It's just like they would be forced to be mano pretty much and see who actually is better. You know what I mean?
And they have the exclusive games. Don't get me wrong. While I'm not a fan of like The Last of Us or God of War and stuff like that, they're exclusive games. They're huge games. People love them. People buy them. But as many people have said, exclusivity in games is not going to be the future of gaming, because that's not going to be what sells and pushes the system solely anymore. And Microsoft, I think, kind of saw that before, but it kind of bit them in the ass with the Xbox One, because they just had no exclusives. They had Forza and Halo, and only one Halo game at that, and it's just bit them in the ass. I mean, they had some exclusives, but they were small titles. They weren't anything big. You take a look at Sony, and Last of Us was humongous for the PS3, and it came out on the PS4, was just as big. God of War came back, and all this, Horizon.
Not to mention all of the Japanese import games that made their way on the PlayStation, and that's a huge, huge market. And for somebody like me, for instance, I don't play online games. I just don't. I mean, like Fallout 76, maybe a little bit here and there, but like in general, for me, how does the hardware perform and what games are on it? For me, that's 90% of my decision right there. So as things move into, the new, generations where everything is connected, and yeah, you're right. It's not going to be just about the exclusives anymore. But at the end of the day, I mean, there's still game consoles, and Microsoft and Sony have tried to go with the "we are your entertainment solution" pitch now for the last 3 generations, and Nintendo has kind of steered back from that and said, we don't want to be all that. We just want to have real simple games that are fun that people can play and not worry about, they're not spec driven as much as these guys are, and they're not internet driven as much as these guys are. So I'm curious to see what ends up happening, with Nintendo's next generation of stuff.
Sure.
That is a good thing to bring up, because Nintendo isn't really like on the same track as Microsoft or PlayStation being released. They just kind of do their own thing and release like, oh hey, we made this. Oh hey, we made that. They're
Absolutely.
And they don't need to be.
They also make money on their hardware. Their hardware is profitable.
Yeah,
out of the gate.
And they go for gimmicks, but their biggest thing is peripherals. The fact that the original Wii was so massive, and it made them so much money, not because of the console. I mean, yeah, the console sold a shit ton, but because you had to buy all those damn nunchucks.
The Wii Fit
remotes. It was ridiculous. All the little things, the tennis rackets, the steering wheels. That's what made them money. You take a look at what they did with the Switch, the same thing. They're selling cardboard.
They are literally selling
The
cardboard.
tennis rackets weren't necessary, though.
None of it was necessary.
I want to
Yeah,
clarify.
no, you just
The nunchuck was necessary
nunchuck
for a
for
lot
sure,
of
but I mean,
games,
as far as
but
hooking up a baseball bat to the end of your Wiimote, or a fucking tennis racket, or whatever other thing that added like 4 pounds of weight to your controller, that you could flail around madly, only to realize that all you had to really do was go like this, and the controller did what it needed to do. You didn't have to do all this crazy dancing around that people thought. I loved watching people flail like madmen playing those Wii Interactives when they first came out. I was like, here, let me show you how this works. And then they're like, oh.
And somebody, I don't remember who it was, brought up a good point about the Asian market. The fact that Microsoft and Xbox has pushed and put Xbox Live on Nintendo is huge in that regard.
It is, because it was their only way in, because they got zero support.
Exactly. And if we can see a partnership, and like I said, I truly see this happening. I think Xbox Live being on Nintendo was the first step. If we see a partnership where we start to see some of the Xbox games ported over to Nintendo, that's going to be huge for the Asian market, because these games that people wouldn't normally play because they're playing their Switches or their PlayStations and not Xboxes, they're not going to be able to purchase on their Switch. Such as Halo, Forza, Fable, which I cannot wait for Fable. There's games like that are simply going to be available and accessible to people who they weren't before, and that's going to help in the Asian market. And whether that pushes Xbox consoles over there or not, that's to be seen. But like I said, I think that Microsoft is setting them up for the inability to fail this generation. And I'm not saying PlayStation isn't. We just haven't really seen much from them, except for, hey, here's our exclusive games, and here you can buy an optical drive console or a digital drive console. Have fun. That's pretty much all they've shown, and that's kind of how Sony's always been. They've always been very close to the chest, and they've just been like, hey, when something's ready to come out, hey, check this out, and people are like, holy shit, that's amazing. But I mean, except for this PS5, I think it looks like crap. But
I think they both look stupid, for the record. I'm like, that PS5 looks like a garbage can, and that Xbox looks like it was designed in 1970. But hey,
I agree with you about the Xbox. I like the design of it. I don't know what it is about it. It's like, it's not like a oh, I love this design. I'm just looking at it, I'm just like,
well, it's a box.
That's pretty cool, because we're so used to our consoles just being rectangles or whatever. I did like the console design of the PlayStation 4 a lot more than I liked the console design of like the 360, PS3, and everything.
Well, and then next year it'll have a redesign, and then the year after that it will have a redesign. It'll be slim down versions with
It's different.
Yeah, they take up way less space, and I've learned that lesson after adopting Gen 1 consoles for years. It's kind of like, yeah, it's great to get it But if there's not the library that you're looking for, man, wait for 6 months to 8 months. The prices go down and you get a different version. Nothing is worse than that launch for the Xbox 360, man. I mean, that took them 2 years to get that rectified. That was a disaster out of the gate. And even when PlayStation had their problems, nothing came close to the Red Ring of Death. I mean, that is fabled forever. That is there in the annals of time. The Red Ring of Death is the perpetual meme with Xbox. And I mean, Xbox One generation was pretty solid out of the gate. I mean, very little, and PlayStation as well. That generation was pretty good. But you know, Nintendo is really the only company that doesn't have Gen 1 issues. They're always on top of their stuff, and I'm always hesitant now with you know, a $500 piece of machinery. You know, boy, I better feel comfortable about throwing down that money that I'm, number one, going to get the games, and number two, going to get the mechanical reliability. Because you know what? If your Gen 1 console takes a shit on you at launch, guess what you don't have? Replacement units. You know, that's just probably was the most frustrating thing of especially in the holiday season, when defects come running through and you can't replace them. Boy, you ruined little Timmy's Christmas, and people are going to start poking your fucking voodoo doll full of pins, and calling you every name in the book, and you know, blaming you, of course, for stuff that you have no control over. Yeah, I guess that's just, as these things get bigger and more powerful, the potential for hardware issues definitely does not get any less.
No. Reno, it looked like you grabbed something to show off, so I want you to.
Oh, well, I was going to show you how they got inspiration to design the Xbox. It's just a black box, just like a black rectangle.
Yeah. I can imagine how that board meeting went. Oh, I've got this great idea. Check this out. They had the graphic designer come through, and the guy just took his pencil and went, check this out. Here's a box.
They modeled the PS5 off the Wi-Fi router.
It does look like a Wi-Fi router.
So they're...
Let's do this, guys. I don't know if you're going to be available next week. I actually got to get going here. I got some stuff I got to get done before the night is over. We barely got really talking on any of this. I'd love to talk with you guys more about it. Maybe next week, if you guys are free, it'd be great. But I want to thank you guys for being on. It's been great. A great discussion. There's a lot to talk about with this next generation. Like I said, this is just the beginning of the console wars of the 9th generation. So it's going to be exciting to see what's going to happen over the next few months as it really starts to, we build up to the launch of these systems, and seeing where they take us, because it is an exciting time. And while I may be an Xbox, I can't freaking talk, Xbox fanboy here, PlayStation 5 does look impressive. It does look like it's going to be something to be reckoned with. I just don't think, we haven't seen anything myself that sets it up for success through the entirety of this generation. I'm going to just go through the line here, what you guys' last final thoughts are on this. CJ, go for it, man.
Oh, I accidentally muted myself instead of unmuting myself. I didn't realize I was unmuted. But honestly, I'm just looking at everything, like, as far as specs go, because that's how I am. I think that the Series X is going to be better. I'm not dissing the PlayStation 5. It's just that it falls under a few categories. But overall, I think that we are in for an interesting generation of consoles here, because we're moving in not knowing, or like we've never been in this situation as we are right now, because as they said before, cross-platform and everything, and now Sony's jumping into that more. Whenever it started with Minecraft, and now it's crossed over to Call of Duty, the most recent Call of Duty game, and I'm assuming that Black Ops Cold War is going to have it as well. Just a lot of cross-platform, and it seems like they're more partnered than they are, hey, come to us. And it feels like the console war and PlayStation players and Xbox players hating each other. I mean, there's still going to be like some bad blood there, but I think that it's going to make gaming more like a whole community as opposed to multiple different communities all smashed together. So that's just how I feel about this generation.
Mike, how about you, man?
Well, I've always been a Sony fanboy, I guess. I've always been more in the Sony camp. I would say spec-wise, Xbox looks pretty impressive. So if we're going to go just simply off maximum spec numbers, I'm going to say that Xbox has some cool stuff going on. I guess I've always been more I appreciate Sony's simplistic approach to things. I do believe sometimes less is more in the sense of communication and not overwhelming people with things. But I am intrigued by the new Xbox. It does look pretty awesome. For me, I guess in terms of what I end up doing this year as far as consoles go, I have to say that I probably won't get either in the launch window this year for one reason and one reason alone. I'm just not seeing titles that warrant me buying, a $500 piece of machinery plus accessories and this and that. None of the launch titles that have been announced interest me, to make that investment at this point. And so while I'm sure that there's some good ones, there's very, very few as far as the number of titles, and definitely nothing that's, new IPs that look great. I could give two shits at this point about stuff like Call of Duty or any of the existing franchises that are like yearly franchises. So they both look awesome. I mean, at some point I'll end up with both of them because I always do. And so I'm kind of with you, CJ, on I think that this shouldn't be an issue of, one being better than the other or picking one over the other. And I look forward to kind of everything being, kind of an even playing field this year. And I really do think that, Sony probably has some stuff hidden up their sleeves that they're waiting till the last minute. Once Microsoft makes all their announcements, they always like to come back at the very end and go, "Ooh, guess what we had hidden up our sleeve?" And like to, throw out a few extra surprises. So, but if it wasn't, for the lack of titles, I'd probably be more excited about the holiday season this year. But, give it a little bit of time. The stuff will become available. They'll work out their, launch window glitches. And hopefully by, Q1, we'll start to see some solid titles rolling through.
All right, Reno, take us home, man.
Yeah, I'm looking down the road 5-6 years to see how much they can actually improve if after a while they start saying, "Oh, hey, you could mod our consoles just like you mod computers," and maybe that could be the future. As you said, the console could be like a 10-year generation. So if they say you could add this, you could add that, who's going to be the first person to do it? Who's going to be the next person to do it? And how far can you go with it? So I'm hoping they eventually start to become more like a computer, more like a PC.
Like modular.
Yeah, exactly. Where if you want to fix something, you can. If you want to change something, you can. So you can keep them longer instead of just a cash grab once or twice a decade.
And then replacing the whole thing.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm like, and I'm with you on the titles too. I'm not rushing to get either of them because who's to say at launch one of the consoles could have a huge problem that could set back how many months? And that's with any technology. Look at iPhones. Look at any phone.
Yeah.
So I mean,
if there was Skyrim at launch for one of the consoles, I would pony up in a heartbeat, or Skyrim or Elder Scrolls, whatever the hell they're going to call it. I forgot.
There's been like 14 versions of Skyrim.
I have bought Skyrim on every console, by the way. I'm that guy. Freaking Bethesda motherfuckers. But yeah, I agree with you. If there was the ability to customize your stuff just like that, grow as you go, I think that would be super awesome. And if you make that happen, I will invest in your company.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, guys, thanks for coming on. It's been great. Like I said, maybe next week, maybe we'll talk offline, see if we can set up another time to sit down and talk. I'd love to throw it on Colton's show, Polygon Warriors, instead of doing it here. So maybe we can get that going for him and helping him build that podcast up a bit. But again, thanks for coming on, Mike. I know that everybody can find you over on Spoilerverse as well as on your show, Misery Point Radio. Check them out. They are on all of the different podcast apps that you can possibly get
everywhere.
Everywhere.
We're like the Borg.
Oh man, resistance is futile. So Not Reno Bomb you can find on YouTube. Find him, watch him. He plays a whole bunch of games. What's the game that you've been stuck on recently?
Valorant.
There you go. Yeah. If you're a fan, go play that, or play that. Watch him play that. And CJ, you can be found as the Amazing CJ on what?
The Amazing CJ 27 on Twitch. You can also find me on YouTube. You'll get more content out of Twitch because I do stream, and the only things that go on YouTube are really just streams that I find can make good content, or that I can just post to see how people like it, see what people do, and try and use that as a way to mold my content forward. But everything's just entirely different. Like one day I could be playing something along the lines of Rocket League. One day I could be playing Fortnite with one of my friends. And then someday I could just go all the way back and start playing Mario from like the N64 because I just like making variety of content.
Because why not?
Yes, exactly. Variety is happy.
All right. Well, I'm going to kick you guys from the stream. I'm going to close up here. Thanks for being on the show. So see you, Mike. See you, CJ. See you, Reno. And everybody, thanks for joining. Make sure you check out Bridging the Geekdoms on Spoilerverse.com, or you can find us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all those fun apps that you can find. Any podcast, you can find us there as well. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, do all those things to make sure my YouTube channel grows, because it's a good time. I like doing these live shows, and I hope everybody else likes watching them. All one of you that is watching right now, thank you for watching, by the way. But please check out Spoilerverse.com. Some amazing things are happening over there. We got, as I've mentioned, Misery Point Radio, Bridging the Geekdoms. We got Polygon Warriors. We got Nerds from the Crypt. We got Narrative Gunslingers, and our flagship show, Spoiler Country. Check it out. Check all those shows out. They are all worth your time. I promise you, you will enjoy what you find over at the Spoilerverse. So with all that said, thank you, and I will see you all next week.